So welcome to the Moving Up with Muju Business Podcast, where our goal is to educate and inspire current and future business owners with real-life experience. I'm Dylan, and this is Steve, and today we have on Janel Giarratano, who is the president of Forte Consulting and Investigations. Janel worked for a national insurance claims administrator until she started Forte in 2015. Forte is a specialist provider of forensic engineering, property damage consulting, fire origin and causation, and dispute resolution services. They have performed over 2,300 forensic investigations during just the 2021 calendar year. They've worked for 8 of the nation's 10 largest insurers and 9 of the 10 largest in the world, overseeing projects in the U.S., South America, and the Caribbean. And thank you for being on today, Janel. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Nice to be here.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So I just like to start, give people kind of a background. How did you get into, the business, and then how did you end up starting your own business?
Right. This is the services business. This is the services industry. I think I probably was naturally inclined to the services industry in general throughout my whole life.
Yeah.
You know, I just enjoy the experience of providing a service and developing relationships through the actual providing of services. Mm-hmm. So I ended up in this B2B type of arrangement, which is kind of really focused pretty heavily on insurance claims, the insurance claims vertical.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's kind of a joke in that industry that not many people pursued it. It
Right.
kind of found them.
Yeah.
Like you
Right.
ask them, how did you get into this industry? And they're like, well, there was a job opportunity in the Virgin Islands. I took it. Or,
They didn't write it down in 4th grade that they wanted
Yeah,
to be.
exactly.
Yeah, that's my dream. Yeah, like moving. Yeah.
yeah, right. Not exactly.
Yeah.
Usually it's like there was a car.
Yeah.
You know, on the job offer, I
Yeah,
could get a
yeah.
car or
Right,
something like
yeah.
that. But so it sort of found me. I took a temp job, actually. I was a psych undergrad,
cool.
finished that and was trying to get into, as fascinating as I found psychology, I was trying to get into the practice of it and found that to be pretty difficult for me.
Right.
Yep.
The success rate wasn't as high as I needed to feel good about myself or
Right.
whatever. So it found me a little bit. I ended up taking a temp job. And then as I was developing myself as an adult and trying to figure things out, I was exploring all kinds of things, thinking I could get into, ice cream franchise and serve ice cream and, be really happy. And
Right.
Anyway, long story, I guess, as long as possible. It kept kind of coming back to me, you know, and over the course of time, as I'm still in it, trying to figure out what I want to do with my life, I continue to develop relationships with the people in that industry, and that by its very nature keeps you there.
Right.
And as I learned more about both property management and kind of the response to a property or a piece of machinery that's been damaged, which is
Right.
really what we do, I started getting to like it more.
Yeah.
And your confidence increases, and you just become a little insurance claims nerd.
Right. Yeah. Cool. So did you know did you always think you would end up owning your own business, or that kind of develop as you got into the industry and like, wait, I could do this myself? Like, where did that kind of, was it a little bit of both? What kind of happened for you?
Yeah, I think I did. I think that's why, even in my 20s, I was exploring the franchise type of option because that's fantastic, right? You can be a novice, but you've got the plan laid out there for
Right,
you, and
for
you can be successful on somebody else's knowledge and experience, essentially. And I thought that was a great way to go. It just I wasn't finding an industry match for myself
Right.
at that age. And obviously it's hard to come up with the fundings to do that at that age as well sometimes. So I would say I always, not as a small child, but as a young adult, I felt like I can do this,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then did you use those relationships that you built from, when you were working at the other place to kind of to parlay, or just sort of did you did you know you could establish those relationships and then build them? You know, or was it a little bit of both? You know, I always think that's interesting. Yeah.
That's probably a little bit of both. But I think without question, it's a relationship business.
Yeah.
And they absolutely carry over.
Right.
And I've worked in different parts of the supply chain, particularly in insurance claims response. And it's the same clients really that applies. So, and I, over the years, as you get to know their needs and you understand them better, I think there's just, it's a natural segue that if you're going to make a move, they're going to continue to work with you as long as you've been attuned to their needs in the past.
For sure. So in the lane of building relationships, do you find, like, what's your typical success? Like, you always hear about, lawyers like, oh, I just go to the bar and that's how I get my clients. Is it a similar type of strategy where you're literally just living your life and just happen to meet people and explain what you do and it kind of fits? And if it does, you continue that conversation, or how do you facilitate those relationships?
Yeah, I think that's evolved. I think when I was younger, I would have said, by pursuing specific people that we wanted to work with for one reason or another, and then working toward developing those relationships.
Got it.
Now that I'm older, I feel it just happens a lot more naturally.
Right.
And I genuinely enjoy the people that I work with and for.
Definitely.
And not to say that I didn't genuinely enjoy it in my 20s, but there was this awkwardness about it at that time for me,
Yeah.
There's more strategic because you were looking for the business, obviously, so you always kind of had it in the back of your head, whereas now you're more yourself in
There's
those
less
situations.
agenda, even though there is one, but they just kind of know that.
Yeah, it was more challenging to be authentic there.
For sure.
Because because for a lot of reasons, I think you're a little bit more riddled with insecurities, and so you're not yourself.
Right.
You know how when people are nervous, they behave a little differently than they would,
of course,
in a relaxed environment. And people feel that, right? Like they catch that insecurity whether they say anything about it or not.
Yep.
They want to work with you if you believe in yourself, and then they'll want to work with you. And I think that's kind of how it's evolved.
Definitely.
And when you're starting, like, would you tell somebody who's starting, or go back and tell yourself, like, should you just go through that and just do as much as you can? Or would you try to focus on, say, hey, just worry about being relaxed and be yourself? Like, you know what I mean? Because that's a hard thing to look back on and decide, should I have changed my attitude, or did that bring me to this place? Like, you know what I mean? What would your advice be to somebody?
Yeah, because it's a good question, because I feel like actually putting yourself in that situation is the best way to develop it. It's not like you can just be like, turn that light switch off and
relax.
Shush your ego and your insecurities. Just tone those all down. Because it's not that easy. I mean, we'll say, it is a practice, I think. I think it's a practice. I'll say that, you have to narrow your focus, and not just allow all that noise to go in, and then you have a genuine, authentic connection with somebody. And I think it makes the whole working together and providing a service to that person or business or company a much more pleasant experience for everybody, and successful, like a much more successful experience, and long term. And that's how these relationships carry over. Even if you decide to, leave one task or duty or job and move on, or start your own business.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Were you, because did you go in completely by yourself when you started your own business? Did you have a partner?
No, not completely by myself. As a matter of fact, the group of people that came together to start this had actually a substantially more experience than I in this specific service.
Got it.
Where I spent all this time in the claims adjusting arena.
Yeah.
My husband was in the forensic engineering business. Two other individuals, Ben and Glenn, solid guys that had spent years doing this, And so I went into it as the person who had the relationships in the industry.
Right.
Those guys had the knowledge, and they helped develop. Again, here I am a little bit older now, starting a new business. I needed to develop confidence again in order to speak confidently about the service that we're going to provide and respond to the client's needs. So while I understood the client's needs, from being in the industry, our response, took a little ramp up time. So yeah, that was a clever little group, I think, that I was fortunate enough to be part of, and without that brain trust, if you will, we would have never ramped up in the way that we did.
Yeah. Sure. It is difficult to be with another person, though. I mean, it can be. There's so many benefits. Do you? Yeah, right. Sometimes I think do you feel like did you guys have to kind of establish roles, or they naturally happen in terms of like? Example I want to give is for me and Steve. A lot of times I focus on what we have to say the offense. Mm-hmm. Like I'm okay. Let's do more. And Steve's kind of the check guy that goes, all right, hold on. Let's make sure we do it right too. You know what I mean? Did you guys kind of have that balance naturally with the group before? Did you kind of have to say, okay, well I'm going to focus on making sure there's stuff in the engine. You guys make sure it runs properly. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I would say it happened very naturally, and it was easier with a smaller group. We've grown quite a bit since then. We're still a small business, but and as such, as you guys would know too, everybody wears a lot of hats.
For sure.
It's not like it's not like if your seat.
I'm just marketing, and I just do that.
Yeah,
right, yeah.
And now that there's more of us on the team, it feels like a constant thought process of like who's the best person to be ultimately responsible for that task, duty, or role, and what does that look like? So I think that's again developed over the 6 years that we've been doing this, and it started off really naturally easy and simple, and as we've grown, it's gotten more complex but excellent,
For sure.
It's a lot more constantly revisiting that. Who's sitting on what seat in this bus?
Yeah.
I was going to say, if we shift a little bit into that aspect, whether it be business partners or employees, how do you facilitate those relationships in terms of like, do you focus on just someone who's qualified and will fit a role, or do you focus more, kind of what, your whole theme is in like, do I have a genuine relationship with this person? Can I understand what their wants and needs are? How does that thought process go into the inside portion of the business?
It's probably a constant assessment. Mm-hmm. We actually did predictive index tests on people to
like the Myers-Briggs type stuff?
Yeah, it's called the predictive
that's
index.
What it's called. Okay. Got it.
Say it 10 times fast.
Yeah, right.
Let's just call it the PI test.
Okay, that works. That makes sense,
yeah. And that's great for assessing strengths and weaknesses in anywhere from managerial positions, whether or not this person really is inclined to manage people versus systems and processes.
Right,
for sure.
And organizational skills. Is this person going to be great in the data category? Or, which is not me.
Me.
I don't even think I showed up on the spectrum of the chart of the data part. I was like,
did you fill this section out? I just left that blank. That's
but I still am a fan of those kinds of things. This is a psychology undergrad you're talking to, so I'm a fan of those types of things. But of course, obviously, your gut is in it, and talking openly about it. It's speaking openly about how did it feel when you did that? Did you like, do we like this? Is this something you could see yourself doing, 30% of your time throughout the week? And,
for sure.
And then, hey, too, as a growing business, sometimes just by default, people have to do tasks, that they're not exactly perfectly suited for them. But as you grow, you get more people on the bus.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the right people. Am I going to, is that Mac Gannon's book, the Good to Great book?
Oh, yes.
The people on the bus.
Yeah. Right.
I refer to that a lot.
We like one. It's called EOS, Entrepreneur Operating Systems. Traction. You read that one?
No, I haven't read it.
Oh, that's a good
Great
one.
one.
Gene. Yeah, they say right person, right seat.
Yeah.
So similar concept
idea.
too. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like identify the seat and make sure in the right one.
Right.
And then you say, okay, if they're not, and we know they're a good person, we just shift the seat, and then they start to excel.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which is hard to especially when you're starting. Did you guys, there was 4 of you, and you kind of knew what you were doing. Did you, did you guys just kind of say we're all gonna do it together, or did you establish those jobs right away because you knew you were gonna scale, or was it like kind of did you start with everybody doing everything?
Yeah, it was planned, we're going to do this together. And I think that because they had worked together for so long in this role, it was these guys had worked together previously in this specific part of the, supply chain.
Yep.
Right.
So they already had a little bit of a process that we were able to step into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you think was your goal to get to where you are now, or did you guys kind of say, hey, we'll just see how it works out? Or, was 2,300, that like a goal that you wrote down, or did it just kind of turn out that way?
Not specifically. I kind of maybe go with my goals in terms of years and, revenue growth, at X% year over year. We also, making strategic moves influences that goal. We're not going to hire another salesperson, for example, without implementing that goal.
Right.
We're pretty, one thing I'll say is we've been pretty focused on getting the right people and not just filling roles. I would rather wait a year or 2 years with a position open, and we continue to kind of just teamwork, make the dream work until we find the right person.
Right.
And by the right person, I mean that person that is goal-oriented and that person that's going to actually set their own goals.
Right.
And kind of challenge themselves. I'm not a good micromanager, and I don't think that that's our MO or our culture at all.
For sure.
We really just kind of want to hire really, really well and then empower people to be successful and get out of their way.
Yeah. And
just,
that's hard to do, though, when you need someone. Like, what I mean? Like, man, we could use this person. They'd be great. And this person doesn't quite fit, but they probably do well. That's a hard thing to do. I know for us, sometimes we have to make sure we focus on that, right? That you say, hey, let's make sure. I'd rather pass on someone that's okay to get the great person than just be like, oh, they're okay, and then we figure out maybe they're not the best fit and we got to move off. That's hard to do.
Yeah, and I think too, depending on where you are in the services industry, you can. So what we do is so consultative. We are engineers and experts and scientists, and so when an incident occurs and somebody needs an expert to take a look at it and maybe reverse engineer what happened.
Yeah.
Explain to them how it happened, whose fault it was.
Yeah.
When we get into those situations, there's a whole lot of intellect and experience that's required to make sure that we're putting the right expert on it.
Yeah.
And that's critical. There's a lot of care on the beginning of a project to make sure that that's right. And then when that's right, everything kind of flows more easily. So hiring in this area is slower, I'd say, than maybe hiring in an area where if it was an administrative professional that had more task-oriented, that's all
like
mapped out for them, right? They don't have to
like our guys,
understand.
it's very, here's what you need to do, and do you fit with the culture, and can you do it? And but yours is a more...
You got to come up with the steps yourself.
Yeah,
we're not going to tell you like how to get this done right. But you need to kind of know.
So almost need people with more of like, they have to have an entrepreneurial mindset, even if they work for you, right? Would you say? Or they sort of have to have that self-starter idea, right? They kind of do, because you're going to give them direction. But you don't say, here's the exact steps and, everything's perfect. Like, you hit your quota, move on. Like, it's got to be,
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah,
I think so. I think an entrepreneurial mindset is very advantageous working at Forte.
Do you have any... or have you experienced any issues with like integrating egos? Because I feel like in this world you have very techie, left brain type people, and then people like yourself who might be a little more, creative, relationship oriented, right brain. Do you have is it hard to balance those two polarizing sides to get them to work together on certain tasks? Because I feel like they come at it from different angles, or just any logistics in the office. So that can be hard to balance.
Yeah, so we have in our network about 1,300 experts, engineers, scientists, and brilliant people. A lot of really brilliant left-brained people, and so that's super cool because they can dissect the situation.
Right.
And then in our administrative team, we have a pretty good balance of that right and left brain, the project management team, I should say, and business development. So I don't know. I don't see conflicts happening. You would be, I think, almost surprised at how cool the teamwork thing comes together when it comes together on a really complex situation.
Sure.
We've had projects where an entire building is completely messed up, and we need to assess all of the mechanical systems, all of the electrical systems, all of the processes. If it's industrial, they have process engineers that are saying and structural. So all of these people will have to work together on one project. And I call it like the brain trust.
Yeah,
definitely.
That literally is. And they can assess the entire situation together as a team, and make sure, the communication flows. We usually do put one person as the lead in those cases. That always helps.
Yeah.
To make it clear to everybody that there's somebody in who's the voice of the team. We don't have too much conflict in that area, thankfully.
That's good. Yeah, I bet that would relate back to the PI index and making sure that you're fulfilling the right type of person for the role that you have.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, because that's. I mean, I can't even figure out when my microwave breaks, so I can't imagine. I would be like, to say stuff, I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever you say, yeah, keep it moving. Do you manage those claims? Do you help manage them, or are you guys more so just focus on making sure you facilitate that happening?
Yeah, it's funny because you think about being a business owner, you should be working yourself out of the tasks of the job.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But I like them. So yes, I do still get involved in project managing particularly some of the cases that I have brought in and that are incredibly complex. Yeah. Especially ones like the one I just referenced where we have multiple experts working together, and I need to make sure communication is flowing and nobody's getting weird.
Yep.
Which just never happened. So I integrate myself into that team. Plus, it's a fascinating learning experience to go through those types of investigations with them and see what they've picked up, what evidence they've collected to determine that it was the forklift operator that did it. They come to these conclusions based on the evidence available to them. So yeah, I think as you continue to grow in the business, I do realize that I have to do less and less of that, and it kind of honestly makes me a little bit sad, but excited at the same time, because you lead and focus on other tasks of operating the business, and it's just kind of fun.
Have you had any reservations? Because we did, because I'm sure you've had a little bit of stepping away from the very first day, right? Has that ever been difficult to, we call it, the EOS calls it, letting go of the vine? Taking that step from okay, now I'm going to take this task, which I know is important, but I'm better off focusing on this thing. Yeah. Was that difficult? Did you ever have any of those moments when it's like, man, okay, I've got to let this person do this so I can focus on this,
Oh, no, not me.
Right.
I do. Yeah. I would do it. I would do every single thing in this company if I physically could, if I could duplicate myself. That's silly. It's so silly. I know that it is. I don't want to be that way.
Right. Yeah.
But it's just, I'll do it. But then, it's not the right thing to do. So I have to practice kind of a little mantra to myself that's like this, let it go.
Yeah.
Let it go. Why did you hire these great people?
For sure.
If you can't enable them to do it, And so it's gotten easier.
Yes.
It's gotten easier, Dylan. It's like, plus too, the first 2 years of any business, I think, you feel like you're running uphill,
Right, yeah.
You don't feel, and it's hard to undo that, to stop doing that, to be like, wait, it's okay. I don't, there's actual wind at my back now.
Yeah, right.
And I'm kind of starting to feel like I'm coasting here. That's almost a tough pill to swallow, not in a bad way. It's just that you're in wartime, and
you're out of survival, transitioning from survival mode to sort of okay, thinking more long term and thinking more holistically. That's really hard to get, and to have once you get even that privilege, like you said, to even think that, it's hard to make that shift. At least it was for us to be like, no, we got to solve everything. Oh no, we don't. We just need to
Right.
Like you said, just empower.
Trust the systems and processes and the people that you've put in place. You keep, and then now I really have gotten to be, I think, much better at that.
Right.
Saying, all right, what is the system and the process and who is the person? Because if you got those three things right, I can completely focus on something else until I'm needed there.
Right.
You know, and I think everybody knows that they just reach out. Like, I'm here to empower you to do this.
Yes,
for sure. Yeah,
but you're going to do it.
We had a previous episode, one of our guests, Dave Rivell, and he was talking about a similar concept about like lower brain and upper brain. And when you're in a state of stress, you can't get to that upper brain thinking about 5 years from now because you're worried about payroll next week. You know what I mean? Like, you're not worried about, I mean, you are, but you can't focus on the 10-year vision because you're in that stress state. And when you have that revelation, and when we had that conversation, I realized, oh man, I had that exact same situation. Once you feel the wind behind your back and you realize that you're able to kind of jump into upper brain, that's like a monumental step in the business success, to be like, wow, I actually have the privilege of thinking about the future and knowing that I have my feet under me. And that's interesting to hear from another person who's doing the same thing. So that's cool.
Yeah, there's definitely a tipping point. And you almost don't even realize it happened.
Not at all.
And then you're
like, still kind of in it.
Yeah.
And then you're like, wait, no. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
You're like, wait a second. There's somebody that can do this task. I didn't do it. Yeah.
Right.
It's definitely a tipping point. And there's no fireworks or you've made it.
Big moment. Yeah. Montage where you go, yes.
It's like
you know what I mean? Yeah.
It's like amnesia. You're just like, whoa, wait.
I'm
here.
No,
I got here.
Yeah.
I wrote at the beginning, the first couple years there, I actually wrote a very personal but I think well written paper, if you will,
very
about
yeah.
I do enjoy writing, but and I didn't share it with anybody because it wasn't. It's not the right time. It wasn't the right time, but it was kind of like a 3-part thing on all of those things that keep you from. That keep you from realizing your own success, fear, and anxiety, kind of being aligned, but fear, like it's scary to take yourself off of a payroll that's safe and comfortable in a job that you really quite liked a lot, and and then to go into something that you're not going to get paid for a year, those kinds of things. That's really
and then you
scary.
could still lose it all. Yeah,
right.
You're gambling every day.
Yeah, and you find yourself even, with people that you worked with for years, that you have really amazing, authentic relationships with. You find yourself doubting yourself with them even and saying, like, are you going to still like me now that I have my own business? And it's silly. And you impose those, feelings. But getting over fear or making fear, just kind of pushing through with fear, was kind of the crux of it, and I think it's a huge thing to overcome, and then you don't realize it when you're in it. That's what it is.
Right. Yep. Yeah. That like imposter syndrome that I think everyone has a little bit of. Even someone with tons of you had already done it and you had this great brain trust and you're still like, I'm not sure. That's cool for us to hear. Like, wow, even someone as successful as you is that had that same feeling. So it means anyone, us or someone listening, says, yeah, it's okay. It's natural.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Fine.
Absolutely.
And how you confront that's what makes the difference between if you're going to make it or not, right? If you're going to,
And you realize, too, what matters. You spend a whole lot of time given. I was almost going to curse. I'm not going to.
No, yeah, you're okay.
Oh, you can?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
You spend a lot of time giving a shit about stuff that you shouldn't give a shit about.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. You find yourself being cheered on by certain people that, you weren't counting on that, and it happened, and the authenticity of those relationships kind of just propels. And here you are, in being grateful, but reaping the rewards of everything you've sown for in the industry that you're in for a very long period of time, with that complete unconscious rhythm that's going on. You're reaping the rewards of years of work that preceded you starting a business in the industry.
Definitely. Yeah. Wow. You definitely have a psych degree, man. That was great. Wow, that was fantastic. I've never heard it put that well. That's awesome. Do you have any questions for me and Steve?
Well, I mean, I know I know a little about you guys
yeah.
because we worked together, and I know Allie. So,
Yeah.
but I think it's awesome. I just learned that you franchise a couple locations now.
Yeah, I got 2 locations. Yeah.
So where are
hoping
you
8
going
more
with
this
that?
year. Yeah, hoping to get 8 more this year.
8 more
and
this year?
That's the goal. Yeah,
That's great.
Goal's 150 units and 300 million in revenue in 10 years. So that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're thinking. So we wrote it down. So like you said, now I got to write a paper, or maybe you can write one. Not my fear. Yeah. It's bigger now, I think. Yeah. But
I'll have to find that paper and pull it out
That's
and see if
awesome.
it really was as well written as I thought it was.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
You like revised it every single time you thought about and then I say, right. Yeah.
But it's funny because I'd thought about the franchise model before. So in our business, from a state licensing standpoint, it can be a little bit arduous on the compliance thing. It's actually really arduous. I'm underestimating it. And if we were franchised in various states, that would be one way to kind of help resolve that
because it's a local person branch, right?
Yeah, and you would have, a local technical person, local business development people, and it really would flourish in the state. And especially with structural engineering, it's very state specific, and there's different licenses in each state.
Got it.
Anyway, I thought about that a lot. We haven't gone that route. It's just something I always think about.
Yeah. Cool.
I'm assuming you guys spent a good bit of time developing your business model and writing it down and putting it into plan.
Spent a bunch of money to have a consultant make sure we got it right and tell us what we didn't do, right?
And when you get a new franchisee, do you personally spend a lot of time with them until they've ramped up to a point where they're coasting?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then we're trying to keep working with them so they go from coasting to exploding, right? Yeah, no, it's almost like for us so far it's been like starting a new business because now we're instead of running our business and running employees and managing, we're supporting and really coaching. That's like the way we think about it. Like we're really just coaching another business owner. You know what I mean? It's a totally different mindset as opposed to, okay, that didn't go well. Let me tell you exactly what to do. It's like, I can give you the system, but you're the one that has to do it and make that, that connection or build those relate. It's not, okay, you're a manager or you're whatever. I can solve the issue for you. It's like, I can't really. I really can't. You know what I mean? And it's a totally different kind of mindset too, which is been fun and certainly interesting at the same time, Yeah. Have you thought about franchising? Like, or I mean, you said you thought about it. You're still thinking as a potential that you might go into, or?
Yeah, it's kind of always there on the back of my mind. It's kind of just a solution. It could work.
Right.
And it could work in what we do. Yeah. It could work. And
Definitely.
I don't know, right now we're in our current expansion, we'll be starting a separate LLC in a state to accomplish all of those compliance things that I have to accomplish. And then coaching and training that person to do it as an employee, not as a franchise owner or anything like that, but as an employee. So that is, to me, it seems like you could do it that way. I don't definitely. And then they would be the ones investing in us there, and we would be, returning the favor in a big way, but they would own what they're doing.
Right. Sure. Yeah. And they make, that the feeling of those relationships like you have, like, no, I'm going to make sure this claim goes well because those are my people.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like there's an extra level. That's how we feel, whether it's a move or a junk job or something like that. Like they really, really, really care because it's like, this is my business. That's my name. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? On it. Yeah, it's moving you and junk you, so I'm under that umbrella, but I'm the owner. Mm-hmm. And there's an extra level, the difference between being a great employee and being an owner is light years, just because the actual, feeling you have of it being yours is different. So that's what we like about the franchise model. So
yeah, we always one of our mottos is we want to create great local business owners, because the motto for the company in its entirety is to have a corporate accountability, but with a local feel. And it sounds like that's kind of the mission that you're going to as well, because you do want to have that structure. You want to have, it done right, but then also that personal touch to know that, it's just going to be handled with care.
Right. And there's somebody here, geographically here, locally to those clients, because we don't have a 50-person sales team or business development or account management team. We don't have that at the moment, and it's not really a model I want to go toward. Mm-hmm. Sure. I'm not attracted to that model of having 50 salespeople.
Yeah.
Nothing against sales.
Yeah, no.
It's a lot of salespeople, though.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, too.
Until next time.
All right. Have a good one.
take care.